Hey, how's it going? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone, and or you may not, that we have our radio show on kprlive.com every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. That's a new thing that we started a few weeks ago, and this is kind of a supplemental video to go along with the conversation that we've been having on kprlive.com over the last couple weeks. And so we're talking about guitar setup, and the very first thing we want to discuss with guitar setup is setting our neck relief. And this is not a how-to. If you go to our YouTube channel, you will see a playlist that is specifically the 6 main steps of setting up a guitar, and within that there will be a how-to set up your string relief. What we want to talk about here is more the concept behind it so that you can kind of understand the interaction between setting string relief, neck relief, and all the other adjustments that have to go along with the guitar. You do it in a certain order, but they all kind of interact with each other, and as it all comes together, you'll kind of see that the specifications that you see from day to day on the internet aren't, they're not set in stone, and it's once you understand the concept of it, it'll make it to where you can set up the guitar more how you play it and less to like a spec sheet that a lot of people want to say. So let's talk about why we would even have to worry about this in the first place. What is our neck relief? Now, a lot of people say, well, I thought that was setting my action. No, that's a completely different thing. And this is what we do when we adjust our truss rod. Setting our neck relief is what we do when we adjust our truss rod. But a lot of people have a misconception about this. They think that it has to do with setting how high the strings are on the guitar. While it does interact and affect that, that is not its main purpose. So let's discuss it. Okay, so we have our guitar here. Now, when we set our neck relief, what we're doing is we're establishing the flatness of the playing surface. Okay, now there's a couple of different things that affect, and this ends up being our baseline for the rest of our guitar setup, is this playing surface. Okay, so we want to establish that. There's 2 main forces that go into this. When we have our guitar put together and the neck is completely flat, once we string it up, what will happen? The head of the guitar will start to go this way. It effectively wanting to kind of like bend the guitar in half, right? So to offset the tension of the strings and have it controllable, the truss rod is laid inside the neck, and the idea is when you tighten the truss rod, the middle of the neck comes up, and what that does is that counteracts the force of the strings going this way. It pulls it back that way, and now you can equalize that tension. Okay, that's what it's for. It is to establish that playing surface at a particular space and keep it, or a particular flatness, and keep it right there. Okay, now if it has a lot of space in there, then yeah, it's going to make the strings higher, but that is not its main purpose. Its main purpose is to, like I said, offset the string tension. This means that when we put heavier strings on it, we're going to have to adjust for it. So, and if you go to our other video, you'll see exactly how we do this. I really just want to help people understand the forces that are going into it, okay? So that's really what setting the relief does. Now, how much neck relief do we need in our guitar? Well, that has a lot to do with playing style. You'll see, if you go to see that how-to video, you'll see that we capo the first fret, and then we fret it down here where the guitar attaches, and then we see how much gap is between right in the middle of the neck, so right about here or so, and usually it's about 10 thousandths. It can vary from, depending on the setup, 5 thousandths to about 15 thousandths, probably on the very outside extremes of that. On this guitar, it's set at 10 thousandths of an inch. Like I said, go to that other video and that'll give you the particulars on how to get to that measurement. That measurement, though, is not a set in stone thing, okay? What affects that measurement? Honestly, it's how we play, and here's why. The string does not move straight up and down in parallel with the neck of the guitar. the string moves in a wave. Think of like those CrossFit guys that whip the ropes, and it does that transverse wave down, and then it would hit on a guitar, it would hit the nut, and it would go back. So when we pluck the note of the guitar, it kind of flings down this way and comes back, and it doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in a series of arcs, or in kind of a traveling arc back and forth. If the neck is completely flat, then that means the string doesn't have anywhere to move in the middle. Okay? Now, if we want it completely flat and it hits the neck, we can actually this is where our other adjustments can interact with that. But as a baseline, we need to give it a little bit of space. What affects how much space? Two things. The quality of the playing surface, the fret job. If the fret job is really, really good and really, really flat, and we're a very light touch, then we can have very little space, 5/8 thousandths of an inch. If the fret job is not as good, or it is worn over time, and we play a little harder, we're going to need a little bit more room in there, 10 to 15 thousandths of an inch, to play without any kind of rattles or anything. So it's not really set in stone. It's just a matter of how you play and the condition of your guitar. What can affect the changes to our neck relief? There's really only a couple of things there. Temperature and humidity, the weather. A lot of people make the misconception that, oh, you know what? I picked up my guitar in the springtime, or I picked it up in the fall, and all of a sudden they start reaching for tools and want to play with measurements in their saddles. Remember that the only thing that moves in your guitar while you're not touching it is that neck relief, because it has to do with humidity and temperature affecting the wood itself in the guitar. Now, the tension doesn't change because of the strings being on there, but the wood expanding and contracting will make it move just a little bit. And so once you get your guitar set and you figure out where you want that 5, 10, 15 thousandths of an inch instrument, tolerance for yourself, and you've got your string tension because you've got your gauge of strings chosen for your particular guitar, you've got it completely set up, everything is cool. And in the springtime, it rattles a little bit. Maybe in the springtime, you might have to give it this much, and then in the fall, you might have to give it this much back the other way. That's kind of, once it's there, that's really all you need to do once it's set up that way, provided that your neck is fairly stable. What can affect how much adjustment a guitar needs? Well, there's a couple of different things. The stability of the neck itself is the number one thing. The other thing would be is if you are changing other variables like tremolo setup or string tension based on changing different string gauges. Okay, so those things can affect your truss rod adjustment. If you leave it all alone though, like I said, in the fall and in the spring, you'll just have a little tweak one way, and in the other season, you might have a little tweak the other way. And as long as you keep your humidity in your house or your studio or whatever, at a median, 50%, and you could get really technical on what the humidity in your house should be, but it's really hard for most people to keep any kind of really, really tight humidity tolerances outside of, right around, 40 to 50%. So just know that you don't want to leave it in a really dry place or in a really humid place, and everything will stay kind of stable. There are a couple of different variables to that though. Most like Fender style guitars, like this one, have a maple neck, right? Maple is really, really stable, and when you adjust it, you tweak it a little bit and it moves and everything's fine. Certain types of sapele and mahogany and some other sorts of woods like that, they're a little slower to move. So move them in small increments and maybe give them an hour or 2 or 3 hours between adjustments. Because I have found that mahogany especially, you'll move it a little bit and it'll kind of continue to move past where you moved it, if you are trying to take too big of chunks at a time. So go in real small increments with other woods besides maple. Maple will move pretty quick. But again, even with maple, don't force it and don't make it do more than is intended. You know, just an eighth or a quarter of a turn at a time, quarter at most, and let it sit for a little while. Let it settle in. It's wood moving. Remember that, and you should be fine. So the other kind of condition that can cause you to need to adjust your neck a lot is other more exotic woods like bird's eye maple or tiger maple, you know, where the grain is real pretty, but it's less stable because of the structure of the wood and the direction of those grains. The figuring is beautiful, but it does make it a little bit less stable. You may have to stay on top of those a little bit more than a conventional maple or mahogany neck that we see in most off-the-shelf guitars today. So as we get into next week, nut setup, and then beyond that, saddle setup, we'll talk a little bit about how, even though this is our baseline adjustment, we want to probably come back to it after we do our other adjustments and just make sure everything is still cool. Because remember, these are two different tension forces and everything kind of working against each other to keep this playing surface flat. So remember, it doesn't have anything to do with raising your strings up and down. Okay? This is establishing your playing surface. So if you go to our other video, you'll see specifically how to be able to do those things. And then as we build on this series, you'll get to understand some more of these concepts and how they kind of work together with each other. Please check out kprlive.com every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. If you miss it for some reason, there will be a replay the next day available that you will be able to hear at kprlive.com. And then to the best of our ability, we're going to shoot a video like this to kind of accompany it every week on Dylan Talks Tone on YouTube. Please, in between all of the shows that we're doing, check us out on social media at Dylan Pickups, at Dylan Talks Tone, for some of the other little projects that we've got going and adjustments that we're making on various guitars. And we got some crazy stuff going all the time. So in between shows, keep up with us all over social media at Dylan Pickups and Dylan Talks Tone. And until then, my name is Dylan. This has been Dylan Talks Tone. I hope you all have a great day.